are live.
All right. So we're going to reconvene to open session. Roll call. Mr. Steve.
Yep.
Kat.
Yep.
And
Yes.
Jeremiah.
Yes.
I'm here. Vince. Miss Johnson.
I'm here.
All right. Cody.
We virtually have Rob Debuse from School Perceptions joining us. Rob's company specializes in basically community survey work. He's going to give us a little bit of background on the community survey process and then share a possible draft that we may be working from to share with our community in the coming weeks and months. So, Rob, I'll turn it over to you to kind of give the 101 here.
Cool, sounds good. Thank you. Appreciate your time. So as Cody said, my name is Rob Denise, and I do have, I don't know if you can see him on your screen, but I do have Scott Gerard from our team listening in as well. We're going to tag team your project. Always nice to have two and kind of critique each other's writing and make each other more available and so on. We've worked with Maple a couple of times over the years, going all the way back about 10 years or so now. We did your operational referendum survey and a couple of staff surveys along the way, and now the survey we're preparing for now. So we do have a survey that we're going to show you tonight, as you know, and I'm going to say something kind of silly, but bear with me. But as you look at the survey tonight, don't so much think about the draft that we're going through. Think more about the survey strategy. So in other words, what that means is think a little bit more big picture about, is it the right tone? Is it the right message? Does it sound like us? You know, does it sound like you, basically? I don't want it to sound like Rob or Scott or Becca or anybody else but Maple. So we really need to make sure that it sounds like you, and even more importantly, that it's asking you the questions that you will need for data making or data decision making this fall. You can certainly write on it, track or change, whatever you want to do. We'll take a look at any feedback. But really what I want to say is, here's a question that we would pose to your community. Is this the data you want? Yay or nay? And if not, how can we get into a better place that you want to be? We always have a red pen handy. Wordsmithing is important, but not necessarily urgent right now. But as we do our wordsmithing, we're pretty cognizant of the length. So our goal is 1,400 to 1,600 words, and right now you're actually at a pretty cool 1,200. So we do a little bit of room, but we've never written a longer survey and had it be a better survey. Anything we can take out, anything we can do to make it shorter, we do, because there's a direct relationship between length of the survey and willingness to take it. So in a bit, I'm going to show you the first page of your survey. Basically, if we were to add the equivalent of the opening page of your survey again, if we added about 200 words, when you apply that to Maple, about 96 households, almost 100 households who would have given you their data, did nothing but toss it in the trash. Too long, too complicated, don't have enough time, don't want to read it, goes right in the trash. So we really want to make sure that every single word in the survey has a purpose, and there's not one more word than what we need. We also want to make sure that it's something people can take fairly quickly in terms of the number of words that they can read per minute. So about 270 words per minute, but somebody checks their phone about every 4 minutes. So we give them all over 1,000 words before somebody gets sucked into an app that's designed to keep them there. So we want to make sure that it's engaging right off the bat. And even though we don't consciously feel it, our brains will decide within 17 milliseconds whether we like what we pick up, whether we like what website we've clicked on, and whether we're willing to engage in it. So those first couple of words, I really got to know as a respondent, what do you want? Who is it coming from? What do you want me to do? We're also not just number of words, but also the kinds of words as well. You know, we don't get too deep into revenue limits or revenue caps and tertiary aid and negative aid and all those kinds of things. It's not how people talk, and people don't have a school finance degree. So we really want to make sure that no matter if I've graduated from high school or if I have a PhD, if I pay taxes, I want to have the opportunity to give you my opinion. We write with you and for you, but you as a board know way too much. So we're kind of wiping the slate clean here. And we do that by applying the PERCH test. And basically what that means is, if I'm around for fish at 6 p.m. on a Friday, is it the way I would hear people talking? Is it the way I hear people talking at the street? Is it the way I hear people talking when they stop at a quick share for coffee and Glazers in the morning? If the answer is no, it's bad words for a survey. So we really want to make sure it's approachable, but not salesy. So we're really bad marketers on purpose. So all of you are signing certifying this in your official capacity, and the survey is paid for with district funds, which means it's unlawful to sway anybody in any one direction. What happens free time is free time, but because this is coming from an official capacity using district dollars, it can only be informational, it can only be data gathering, it can only be the story and the facts, can't be anything more. As we run into things that you really want to say, but maybe we don't have room for, we always encourage districts to produce an online FAQ. And then certainly I want to review the timeline and make sure that we're on track for certainly note anything that's changed along the way. So I know that's kind of the boring stuff, but it kind of sets the table for the draft that we're going to review in just a moment. Any questions about our approach or how we do what we do?
Not at this time, Rob.
Okay. So let's go over your timeline. So we're putting the survey together when you actually get the results. I'm going to work backwards. If you're pursuing a potential referendum next April, you have 70 or 75 days before that election day to get the resolution off to the counties. I want to say it's January 27th this year, I believe. Then you would have to have your resolution to all the counties should you decide to pursue that road. We don't want to crunch you for time. We want you to be able to get the data, think about the data, decide if we're going to need to make any changes, and then have those reflected in a potential resolution. So right now we have you slated to receive the data in, 3 months from today, December 8th, 2025. We do need a couple of weeks to not only receive or process paper surveys that we get, but then actually have time to create the report. About 30% of our surveys come in through paper, and about 70% will be online, but that's actually flipped for senior citizens. About 17% of senior citizens choose to take it on paper, and we really need to make sure that their data is honored because they're your most loyal voters. They will be there on election day. They will let you know what they think. So to prepare for that, we have the survey deadline on November 21st. Before we lose everybody to blaze orders, we want this to be done, signed, sealed, and delivered. To get to a normal survey window, we have this landing the week of November 3rd. So you have a very normal, 2.5 or so weeks here, a minimum of 2 weekends. So a very normal survey window. To make that happen, though, printers generally need about 3 weeks for the printing and for the bulk mailing USPS process. So we want to be a little bit conservative here because not everybody will get it on the same day. Some USPS routes will get it earlier than others. There can be a spread of sometimes 4 business days between the first and the last people. So the point is, we want to give the printer and the post office time to do their work. So we're anticipating sending your survey to print the week of October 13th, which means we have about a month. We're here on September 8th for you to review the survey, but we certainly don't need to have anything happen tonight in terms of getting this off the printer tomorrow or anything. We have a few weeks to finish with final edits, make sure that everything related to Kevin, I was listening in on his presentation earlier tonight, make sure Kevin can take a look at all of these financial numbers, enrollment numbers and whatnot. So right now we're sending your survey off to print the week of October 13th. So that's working backwards, but I wanted to make sure I was clear about when you get this whole process done. Any questions about the timeline before we actually get to the survey itself?
Good here.
Okay, well, let's get to the fun stuff then. So I've actually been making edits. Like I said, I was listening into Kevin earlier on. So I apologize if this doesn't look exactly like maybe something you've seen in the past, depending on what if anything you have in front of you. But let's go to the open letter. So the very first thing people see, we want to be very clear right away about what it is and what we need from people. So it says, dear families and community members, the school district of Maple needs your input to help develop a plan to invest in our facilities. Why do you need my help as a resident? Well, you complete normal building maintenance every year. However, the buildings are at the point where many major systems and infrastructure are worn out or they're inefficient. Things like heating and ventilation systems, plumbing, electrical systems, roofs, windows, driveways, parking lots, etc., whatever those big ticket items are. And then the cost to replace these is just too expensive to be paid for from your annual budget. So in bold then, the district needs to finalize a plan to address these challenges that reflect the priorities of our residents and our taxpayers. Therefore, the call to action. Please take a few minutes to complete this survey, and then we know that all the data will come back to us as a third-party research firm to make sure everything stays private and confidential. So I'll pause for feedback in just a moment, but just to round out the opening letter. Once as a respondent, I know what this thing is, then I gotta figure out how to take it. So the website will be here, I can type this in, and then once you get this at home, the there will be a 16-character code right here in this open space that allows me to take the survey once and only once, so that my voice is allowed to be heard, but my voice isn't allowed to be any louder than anybody else's. We don't want your survey to be taken dozens of times by the same person and skew your data in a way that they want to see it be skewed. So I get one and only one shot to take my survey. If I have questions though, or there's additional adults in my household that want to take the survey, we have a number noted here, and then the big deadline below that. Finally, we finish it off with if somebody needs extra support, they can contact the district office, and then we'll note the results are certainly going to be available at a public meeting. And then took a little bit of your website language. Together we can maintain a learning environment that promotes growth on every level for every student every day. Signed by Cody and the entirety of the board. So we're going to get into a lot more details in just a second about what's wrong and why you need some community members' help. But this is kind of our, again, what is this thing? What do you want me to do? Who's this coming from? From a respondent that knows nothing about what's going on in the district, other than they know that that bottom right-hand corner of their tax bill has something to do with you. So let me pause there. Opening message tone, is that kind of what we're aiming for?
Yeah, I think it's good.
We got a lot of head nods.
Okay, great. Then I'm going to open this up. So I know it's kind of awkward to see on the screen here. Let me zoom out and I'll zoom back in so you can read it. But we're going to I got you down to a 4-page survey as I was tweaking tonight, which is good because in terms of raw numbers, 25% more people will take a 4-page survey than an 8-page survey. So anytime we can do something in 4 pages, we do. But what that means is that it's an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that's folded in half. So these 2 pages in the middle are going to be your centerfold, and then at the end will be the back panel. So when I open this up, this page is going to be at the left-hand side. And this is where we dig in a little bit deeper into, okay, what problem do you want me to solve as a respondent? You know, if you're going to ask me for money, then I got to know what you've done or what you need help on. I don't know if I'm going to say yes yet. I don't know if I'm going to say no. But here's where we educate people on why these might be things that you're not able to cover under your annual budget. So, earlier this year, you as a district hired an outside firm to conduct a thorough study of your buildings and grounds. The study highlighted many challenges, and some of those most pressing issues are summarized below. And if you do put this on your website, just in case anybody wants to check the work in the name of transparency, you can certainly put that on your website and we'll make a link here. But see, these are some of the big ticket items. And again, this is, we're not going to print tomorrow. We can continue to tweak these. But the purpose of this section is for somebody to come away with kind of scratching their head and saying, okay, I get it. I don't know if I'm on board yet. I don't know how much this costs. But here are some things that, all right, I get why they might not be able to cover these out of their annual budget. Your roof sections coming up nearly 3 decades old, perhaps leaking, needs to be replaced, and your small repairs are just no longer sufficient. You got your parking lot, your driveway, your sidewalks that need to be repaved. Your interior finishes at Northwestern Elementary, those might be things like your flooring, your carpeting, your cabinetry, and so on. Your big major building systems, so your HVAC, the equipment and the controls, some of which are over 30 years old, and the windows in the gym at Iron River Elementary needing to be replaced. So again, these may not be perfect yet, but in some way, I want to know as a respondent, well, what's wrong? What's wrong with what you currently got? To do something about that, because we already mentioned that it's too expensive for the annual budget, the school district of Maple will need to ask voters if they would consider a capital referendum. Well, what is this thing? Approval of a capital or build referendum would allow us, or you as the district, to take out a loan, i.e. issue debt. And this isn't just a one-time thing that would be financed over many years, similar to the home mortgage that I might have within your district. Once again, I'll pause for feedback in just a moment, but then I might be scratching my head and saying, well, why now? Why not 10 years ago? Why not 10 years from now? Why are you asking me currently in 2025? Well, it may be the right time to consider a capital referendum for 3 reasons. One, starting next year, you're going to be referendum debt-free. I heard Kevin talking a little bit about your Act 32 debt. So it won't be completely debt-free, it sounds like, but at least it'll be referendum debt-free. And coupled with financial planning, it's created this window of opportunity for your community to invest in your buildings without raising the tax rate over the current level. So there's a relatively small window of time here we have to take care of this. Two, what's the second reason why now? Well, again, kind of hammering home that point that this isn't just something that you would do out of your annual budget, or you already would be doing that. You have increasing costs for things like staff benefits and compensation, insurance, utilities, transportation. And not only are you experiencing increasing costs, but the state actually cut the amount of money that you receive in state aid by a projected 15% this year. This limits the amount of money that you can set aside for building maintenance. And three, this is our shot at talking about a revenue limit without ever using the word revenue limit or revenue cap, because nobody knows what that is. So third, the state limits the amount of money available to the district from state aid and local property taxes. This used to increase with inflation, but the state ended that in 2009. If that had continued, you would have approximately $4.5 million in more funds than you currently do, which comes to about $3,500 more per student. So combined, these factors make it very difficult to address these issues above without additional funding through a capital or building referendum. And then this page will culminate with a question. A little bit of a softball, because on purpose, there's no numbers here yet. This is, do I support the concept? So do you support the school district of Maple exploring a building referendum at this time? There's a couple of reasons to ask this question. One, it slows people down. As soon as they see a question, they're more likely to start back up at the top and read this page. And if there's one thing I want people to get out of your survey that you're sending, is an educational piece. I want people to come away from this page. Again, they may still not know if they're going to support it in the ballot box, but I want them coming away from this page saying, all right, I get it. There's some needs here, and I get why they might not be able to cover these from their budget. And I get that this is getting harder. You know, I have increasing costs at home, you have increasing costs at home, and the state cut the amount of money that you have, and it's no longer tied to inflation. So I want people to be educated about your needs and what you're exploring. Second reason this is a really good question is if you hear no on the page that we're going to go to next. So if you hear no on your referendum plan, but you hear yes to this question, what that allows you to do is to back up the bus and say, okay, there's an appetite for people to have us do something, but maybe just not what we proposed on the next page. So that still gives you permission to put something on the ballot next year. But if you hear no, then maybe it just needs to be a little bit cheaper than what's in the survey. So again, kind of a twofold purpose of this question. Will people give us permission to even talk about it? And then really educational piece. Sometimes people refer to our surveys as interactive newsletters. And we love that because we really want people to come away from this understanding your needs and why you can't do this on your own without their help. And second, I'm going to go to the actual projects that you're going to complete, but questions on the left-hand side of your centerfold.
Nothing yet, Rob,
Okay.
unless you got something.
Then, once I know what the problems
Maybe not.
are, then I want to know what they're going to do about them. So again, we will change these if needed over the next 4 or 5 weeks or so. But right now, it sounds like some of the projects that would be here, whether they're at Iron River or Northwestern Elementary, middle and high school, the bus garage, this is where you actually describe, okay, community, we told you about the issues, now here's what we're going to do about them. Could be the fire alarm systems, could be the plumbing and HVAC systems at the middle school, could be the flooring in the shop area, could be, again, the brickwork or tuck pointing that needs work, security systems and cameras. So, again, we have a little time here, but whatever you're going to do, that's what's here on this page, broken up by building or facility. Then, we get to the actual question, the whole reason why you're asking a survey. Would you, I have $18.9 million in here, maybe something else, again, this is just a draft, we'll get this cleaned up over the next few weeks, but would you support an X million capital referendum to fund the facility plan that you just read about as a respondent? And again, this is where Kevin comes in, but it sounds like voter approval would not increase the local property tax rate over the current level. Again, we'll have a quadruple check that. But then, now I know as a survey respondent, I know what number I'm going to see in the ballot box. I know that my tax rate isn't necessarily going to change. And only then can I tell you whether I like it or not. If I don't, or if I'm undecided, then we have an open space for people to describe what is it that they would change or what they might do or what you might do to get them on board. But this is where you can really understand if we hear no, Why are people saying no to our potential plan? And again, if you hear yes on the previous page, maybe you take something out, or maybe you shift some of your plans, maybe you reallocate the dollars into something that sounds like it might be more palatable for your taxpayers and residents. But again, regardless of what's up here, this is kind of the, okay, you told me about the problem, what are you gonna do about it? And then show me that number I'm gonna see in a ballot box, but then translate that to my taxes. And in this case, again, it's that tax rate staying pretty low.
Dan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had just, number 2 under the why now says the state cut the amount of money received in state aid by 15% this year. This limits the amount of money we can set aside for building maintenance. I mean, we can still charge more in taxes. Are we really, is that really true?
That's one that we'd have to figure out and talk through a little bit. Like you said, these are all projected numbers right now.
I mean, yeah, you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Because I mean, we still are going to get the same amount of money, whether it comes from the state or the taxpayer.
That'll be something that the board gets to work with me on the levy on the recommendation from the annual meeting. So
Okay.
that'll be the conversations that we have coming forward starting, September 27th.
All
Do
right.
you have any more, Dan?
Yeah, it's a good point, and depending on, I think you could actually take that, I don't think you'd lose a point even if you took the sentence out, but it's kind of that, I want to call it a shell game, but I don't know a better word at 917. It's kind of like if we have to pay more in this area, the pot is only so big, so it's going to limit what we put over here. But I think you could also make the point even if you take that third sentence out. But think about it.
So the copy that I have shows, it says funding support and it shows local property tax mill rates. And I'm based on what you're showing us on the screen, that's already been removed.
I did. Yeah,
Okay.
it was space map to get you 4 pages, and I figured if the tax rate is going to stay level, then I would rather, you're right, I sacrificed the graph for more responses.
Yep, all right, I understand.
I would take the graph out too.
I did,
Yeah, it doesn't make sense if you say it's not coming.
I think,
You literally keep thinking I just have maybe the least exciting of the last pages. So once I flip this over, then I can kind of give you the whole overall satisfaction. How are we doing? So, maybe 10 years ago, we had some very similar questions on your survey. I want to say this one might have been verbatim. This one's very similar. So we may be able to provide you some longitudinal data to see if you have any change. But regardless, these are questions we put on all of our surveys. But the reason we like to do that is that the overall satisfaction is very tightly correlated with my willingness to support the district in a ballot box. In other words, people that really don't feel like they're very well informed, or they don't feel like the school is delivering a high quality education, are also pretty unlikely to also say yes in the ballot box. So this is kind of the, again, you heard Kevin talk a little bit about the elephants in the room. It kind of lets you know, well, if we do hear no, are there things in particular that people are upset about, and do we need to fix those before we ever put something on a ballot? The other thing, and this is kind of funny, not funny way, but people really like to be asked about how things are going beyond what it has anything to do with their wallet. And we've actually seen some questions some comments in some of our surveys, and you can tell who the parents are because they'll say something like, you're just like my 15-year-old. You only talk to me when you want money. So we actually put in some questions that have nothing to do about money, but kind of the overall, are we meeting your expectations? Are we preparing students with a high quality education? Are we keeping you informed? And we'll have a question in just a moment about how people want to be informed. But are we keeping you informed? And do you feel like we're a source of pride in the community? And kind of that overall net promoter question equivalent is, would you recommend us? And again, these are really tightly correlated with willingness to support a referendum. And then finally, maybe the most important, but maybe the least exciting questions are demographics. So we really want to make sure we're getting good age representation, particularly from your 65 plus. Because of where you are geographically, obviously you may have a good chunk of people who have a residence in your district, but it is not their primary residence. Not that we don't want to hear from them, because every address will get a copy of the survey. But if I check no here, we're going to filter them out of your results. Again, not because we don't want to know their opinion, but if I can't vote there, I have no control over a referendum within your community. So we're going to focus on the people that say yes, because they are the ones that control your elections as a board member, and they are the ones that control an election within your district boundaries. standards for a referendum. If we want to slice and dice by municipality, we certainly can. Look at pockets of opposition or support or confusion. And then on the back end, when I see again on December 8th, we're going to break up much of the data using these two questions into three subgroups. We're going to want to know specifically how staff are feeling. They're kind of your first ambassadors. If they're not on board, nobody will be on board. Very similar for parents. We're going to want to know in isolation how parents are feeling. They're also a strong ambassador. But the no group here is maybe the most important, if for no other reason, that non-parents, non-staff make up about 70 to 80% of voters on election day. Most of the people in your community will really know no here, so we're going to separate each of those out, and we'll give them an appropriate weight depending on how much each of them make up of the bulk of Maple's population. And then finally, kind of a softball question to round it off, communication preference. So when we send information out, how would you like to hear from us? It's a little bit different than how do you receive information from us, because you might be, I don't know, maybe you're always putting a lot of stuff on Facebook, and I don't have Facebook. I don't want you to put stuff on Facebook. I really want you to, I don't know, put a newsletter online or make sure you're covered in the Telegram or whatever the case may be. But this is really as you move forward, how do people want to know from you, and does that vary by age or does it vary by municipality and so on? We can kind of cater your communications as when you move forward. So again, I know it might look a little bit different than what you're seeing, but I did my best to listen in earlier on, especially with Kevin, and get in some of these projects. And again, if we can do it in 4 pages, we certainly do, because it's just much easier for a respondent to take. So that rounds out your survey. I know there's still some things up in the air about exactly what projects you'll undertake and what buildings and kind of how we position what your major needs are. But I guess from an overall perspective, it's kind of a 2-question survey. Would you give us permission to explore a building referendum? And then after you know what you're going to do, are you willing to support it in the ballot box?
Can I ask how these go out?
Water, but go ahead.
How do these go out? Are they you said it's 2 sheets of paper, front and back. Is this folded in half, stuffed in an envelope, and mailed out?
Yeah, good question. So it's a little bit different between 8 and 4 pages. So 8 pages does have a mailer, and it just goes out flat. A 4-pager will actually get stuffed into another envelope along with a business reply envelope.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we're working with a printer right now to get a copy of every single residence. So whether it's a home address, a PO box, or even apartment number, we want to make sure that every household gets at least 1 copy of the survey. So we always initiate via paper. There will always be something tangible that lands on my counter that I can flip through and take a look at. Again, most people will choose to take it online, but if I really want to sit down with a cup of coffee in the morning and I want to fill it out, we will absolutely process all those paper surveys that come back in. But short answer is paper survey, and we'll work with a printer to make sure every resident gets at least 1 copy.
And but you said there's going to be a return envelope with postage paid, right? To return?
That's correct. Yep. That's correct. Yep. It does come directly back to us for the sake of confidentiality. We'll bypass the district completely, and those will come back to us so we can enter that data on your behalf. But yes, it comes with a VRE in there.
Okay.
Other questions that board members have?
Is there an appetite? Well, maybe it's in here under the first question, comments, suggestions. Is that where you expect them to put just like whatever comment they want to? I really want a swimming pool, or who knows what, right?
That's pretty much it. And that, it might be a pool, it might be the grudge I have against my 3rd grade. It's a lot of things.
It's open-ended.
That's the open spot. And we can do some qualitative data analysis. Scott, that's on our call here, is our expert in that. But there are going to be some really valuable themes that come out of that, and we can do a comment theme analysis. And what that really helps is Cody, a few months down the road, can kind of do that myth busting, or he can nip a bunch of questions in the bud. So basically, what you can do is, if there's a strong sentiment of certain questions that need to be that you're going to have to answer, you put it right in your FAQ. And that's what Cody builds his PowerPoint around when he does some of these road shows and say, hey, it sounds like this question is out there in the community. We heard this in our survey. So it also shows that you're listening and that you go through all the comments. And again, we can help you with that. But it makes people feel really honored that they had a question, all of a sudden it pops up on the screen before they ever had to ask it when they go to an info session at school, and it really shows like you're taking advantage of the data that's there. So yes, it is, open season, I can put whatever I want in there, but you're right, if I
What kind of response,
Character limits, for better or worse.
That's gonna be my question.
what kind of response rate do you expect Hope to usually get?
Yeah, it's usually in the mid to upper teens. 15, 16, 17, 18. I did finish up one in the low 20s today. That's pretty typical, but even when we get to that response rate, once you reach about the mid-teens or so, our accuracy rate is about 90 to 94%. So we're certainly not perfect. What that means is that data that you hear on December 8th and what ultimately happens on election day, depending on the election season over the last 10 years or so, the data matches about 90 to 94% of the time. Now, it might not be what you love. If the data says that the referendum is going to pass and it does, that's a win in our world. But if the data says that the referendum is going to fail and a board takes that plan to ballot anyhow and it fails, that's a win in our world because we're in the business of trying to get you the most accurate data and we want to make sure that we're the messengers of your taxpayers. So we don't need a ton of data. In fact, I read the number earlier on today. For statistical significance, I think we need 357 responses. So we don't need a ton of data to be able to extrapolate to the community and get you some good predictions.
Does that imply you do not feel it's necessary to put some sort of incentive in this, like return this survey for a chance to win?
There's some legality there as well.
$5,000 a week for life.
No, it'd be like a tiger sweatshirt. I mean, to be honest with yourself.
We're on a budget.
It's a good question, but unfortunately, you won't know. We won't know. Nobody will know. So it's all random and confidential. So those codes that are sprayed in the front, we give the printer the file and we give them X number of codes and they randomly put those on. There's no connection to an address. There's no connection to anything. So we have absolutely no way of knowing
Good point.
who that. I mean, they have to take their demographics, but we want to know who it is.
Is it worth making the point that they have anonymity as part of the survey?
It's on the first page.
Yeah, we have that.
Oh, is it on there? Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
And I'll reiterate from a public's comment standpoint for this meeting that yes, we do not get that Steve Probst filled out this survey. So feel free to give us clear information, one way or the other.
I have one more question and I'll be quiet. I see you have a suggestion to have a link to a website. Would that be like a special website for this, or what would that be?
I could tackle that one, Rob. So what that link is kind of we've already had some initial conversations, depending on what the board officially decides to do. We would create basically a drop-down tab in our website where people can go for more information should they need it. So it's that combination of trying to give them as much information as we possibly can in the survey within the context of the survey, but that's going to be the more detailed.
Yeah, and I think we could maybe include both the good and the bad. I mean, there's a lot of good things for our community to know about our schools.
So that's going to be the place to have a lot more in-depth information. I've already had some initial conversations with the folks from Myron about their supporting with other district website stuff. We've talked to our webmaster, so that I fully anticipate, depending on what we make a decision on here in the next few minutes, that's where we'll go.
Any other questions? I think that was very comprehensive. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're certainly not in the business of writing.
Cody knows where to find me, certainly. So, as and when you do think of things, don't be a stranger with questions. Otherwise, Cody will plan to catch up maybe later on this week or even at Buzz the next week if you're there and really make sure that this is in tip-top shape before it goes on print.
Yep, we will be in touch.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, so I think with that being the case, based on what we discussed a number of minutes ago, without the camera on, are there any changes to what we had discussed in there, or is everybody still comfortable with what we did?
You mean with this 4-pager? I like it short and sweet.
I do too.
I think it looks great.
Good job condensing it.
Absolutely.
I think short is better.
And ultimately, we'll continue to work on the draft. What we need to decide as a board tonight if we want to move forward with the survey.
Yeah. So that was the next one. Do we want to move forward with the survey?
Only question, kind of details to that is there a cost factor that's gonna be, that could sway our decision?
They don't do this work for free. it's, number of drafts, number of responses. So, but it's tough for me to put a dollar amount to it. We're not talking tens of thousands of dollars by any amount. We're probably talking under 10, but that work, when you factor in number of surveys, print costs, all of that stuff, it's still a little bit unknown. Obviously, the length of the survey, we think we have a good bead on, which longer the survey, the more the cost.
And I think it's important that we give our community a voice.
Yeah.
So this is the best way to do that.
But my other thing is that there's only one per household, right?
At this point in time, yeah, I can talk with Rob about that, but you have
Because I
probably
just thought
multiple.
there, could there be like multiple links?
Well, I thought
or-
there was a way to call the district office.
Yeah, there's that's part
It
of what.
says that, but that's a lot of work to go through for people.
So if you want to both take the survey, you just contact them, they would be able to send you a second one that would have a different code. So then she can do it, because it's not so much the computer for their setup, the IPN or whatever address, it's that code.
Although I would, and it's just strictly I'm curious, how many households vote differently?
That was gonna be my, like,
Talking football
Probably.
here?
No, I'm serious. So if that were to show
No,
up
yeah.
to your house, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, are you and Judy gonna vote differently, do you think?
No, I guess I was just looking at,
They want to reinforce their.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think if it comes to my house, I mean, I'm unfortunately not gonna be the one to fill it out. Becky's gonna take care of it, but we are
You agree on
usually
everything.
on the same.
It's a
Yeah.
household vote.
Right. I agree with whatever she says.
I mean, I think giving people an option to request one, if you give them multiple codes, what happens about the guy who sits down, and fills up 3 of them? And then
That's something that, like I said, that's one I'll have to check on.
sort of a barrier there.
I know we've had some internal conversations about making sure we have the ability to get people information in different means. So some will like online, some will like paper, some.
And like you said, 15 to 20% response.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
we have
accurate. I
3
mean-
people who care enough to
But if
go
that's a
request a
household,
code.
that's,
So
It'll go to
40%.
over 5,000 households technically within our district.
How many
So
else?
that would be sending one, because
That'd be
our newsletter, we
yeah.
got about 5,700 copies to send out.
Oh, well.
It's
That
more than-
return postage will probably be the biggest thing we're gonna eat.
there'll be costs, but again, it's tough to do this work without asking our community.
when he said 70% will fill it out online, it's historical data, but. So I guess if we're comfortable with moving forward with this and using them to do so based on the information that they had, I would entertain a motion and a second to do so.
make a motion that we move forward with the survey.
I second it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. And then finally, the last thing,
You're lucky you get this pizza.
motion and a second to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye individually. No, just-
Oh!
Roll call vote.
Aye.